The arena didn't realize what was happening at first. It looked like a normal substitution, a rookie moment. Caitlin Clark jogging off the bench, adjusting her jersey. Stepping onto the floor for her very first minutes with the senior Team USA roster after 239 long days. Away from competitive basketball. No one expected history to explode that quickly. 3 touches, 3 assists. Just like that. The entire rhythm of the game snapped into a completely different dimension. The Senegal defense had come out aggressive, pressing full court, trying to rattle the American guards. It worked for about 30 seconds. Then Clark touched the ball. And suddenly, the blitz turned into chaos for the wrong team. Pass, assist, pass, assist. Another pass slicing through defenders like a surgical blade. And somewhere on the sideline, statisticians started looking at each other with confusion because the numbers on the screen weren't normal. They were impossible in less than 20 minutes on the court. Caitlin Clark wasn't just dominating a game. She was erasing decades of international basketball history. 5 FIBA world records gone. Records that had survived generations of Olympic legends and global superstars. Suddenly collapsed during one explosive debut. Meanwhile, Paige Bueckers watched it unfold in disbelief. Angel Reese fought inside the paint, trying to keep pace with the tempo. Coach Carol Lawson stood, frozen on the sideline as the offense transformed into something unstoppable. Team USA didn't just win that night. They obliterated Senegal by 64 points. But the real shock wasn't the score, it was realizing that Caitlin Clark had just changed the entire future of Team USA basketball. And this was only the beginning. For Caitlin Clark, the explosion that stunned the world that night didn't begin in that arena. It began months earlier in silence, frustration, and the kind of pressure that can crush even the most gifted athletes. 239 days. That's how long Clark had been away from real competitive basketball. An injury had ripped her out of rhythm, derailed the momentum of her rising career, and forced her into the lonely world every athlete fears most: rehab rooms, empty practice courts, and endless hours wondering if the game will feel the same when you finally return. And during those months, the spotlight didn't fade, it got brighter. While Clark was grinding through rehab drills and strength sessions, the basketball world kept talking about her. Broadcasters debated her future. Fans flooded social media with expectations. FIBA promotional posters plastered her face across the entire qualifying tournament. The message was loud and clear: Caitlin Clark wasn't just another player returning, she was the centerpiece. That kind of spotlight creates a strange kind of pressure. Because when the entire sport starts marketing you as its future, every step back onto the court becomes a test, not just of talent, but of identity. And inside Team USA camp, that pressure collided with another emotional storm. This wasn't a quiet roster. It was a locker room full of young stars, all trying to carve their place in the future of women's basketball. Paige Bueckers had arrived with her own massive reputation, a player many believed could one day control the global stage. Angel Reese brought the fiery confidence that had already turned her into one of the most polarizing figures in the sport. Other young players stepped into camp carrying dreams, ambition, and the quiet fear that one mistake could erase their opportunity. 6 players were making their senior national team debuts, 6 careers standing at the edge of something historic, and right in the center of that storm stood Caitlin Clark, the player everyone expected to dominate, the player everyone was watching. Even Clark knew the expectations were dangerous. Before the game, she admitted she thought the nerves would hit her hard. 8 months away from competition can make even elite players feel rusty, hesitant, unsure of their instincts. But when reporters asked her about the pressure, Clark gave a surprisingly calm answer. She said she wasn't scared. She was excited. That confidence wasn't arrogance. It came from something deeper, the quiet preparation that had been happening behind the scenes for months. Every weakness defenses had exposed during her previous season had become a target for improvement. Ball handling, strength through contact. Reading pressure defenses, she hadn't been resting. She had been rebuilding, and yet, when game day finally arrived, there was still one decision that sent shockwaves through the arena before the opening tip. Caitlin Clark wasn't starting. Coach Kara Lawson handed the starting point guard role to veteran Chelsea Gray, trusting experience over hype in the opening lineup. For some players, that would feel like a vote of no confidence. For Clark, it became something else entirely. Fuel, because sitting on that bench meant she had to watch the opening minutes unfold. Watch Senegal's defense swarm the ball. Watch the offense struggle to break the press, and somewhere inside Clark's mind, a realization started forming. When she finally stepped onto the court, everything was about to change, and nobody, not the opposing defense, not the fans, not even Team USA's coaching staff, was prepared for just how violently that change would arrive. The moment Caitlin Clark finally stepped onto the court, something felt different. It wasn't loud at first. There wasn't some cinematic explosion or dramatic buzzer moment. Just a simple substitution, a jog from the bench, and a quiet shift in energy that only the most experienced basketball minds in the arena seemed to notice. But within seconds, the entire game started bending around her. Senegal had entered the game with a clear strategy: pressure, full court blitzes, aggressive traps designed to suffocate ball handlers and force Team USA into chaos. It had already worked against the starting unit. The American offense looked rushed, uncomfortable, slightly out of sync. Then Clark touched the ball. Her first possession wasn't flashy. No deep three. No step-back highlight, just a pass. Perfectly timed laser through two defenders that landed in Monique Billings' hands for an easy finish. Assist number 1. On the next possession, the blitz came again. Two defenders jumped Clark near half-court, arms extended, trying to trap her before she could organize the offense. Clark didn't panic. She pivoted, scanned the floor in one lightning-fast glance, and fired a cross-court bullet to the corner. Assist number 2. The crowd started to murmur. By the third possession, Senegal doubled her again, desperate to shut down the playmaker before the offense could breathe. Clark took 2 dribbles, drew both defenders toward her body, then flicked the ball behind her back to a cutting teammate. Assist number 3. 3 touches, 3 assists, and suddenly the entire structure of the game collapsed. Team USA's pace exploded. The ball started flying across the court. Players who had looked hesitant minutes earlier were suddenly sprinting into open space, confident the ball would find them. Ryan Howard was the first to realize what was happening. Clark drew another blitz, whipped a pass to the wing, and Howard buried a 3. On the next possession, it happened again and again. Each time Senegal tried to pressure Clark, the ball appeared somewhere else before the defense could recover. Howard started raining threes. The American offense started looking unstoppable, and Coach Kara Lawson could only watch from the sideline as the offense transformed into something completely different than the system she had started the game with. The numbers started stacking up at a terrifying pace. 4 assists, 6 assists, 8 assists before halftime, and here was the truly absurd part. Clark hadn't turned the ball over once, against a defensive scheme specifically designed to create mistakes. She was dismantling the pressure like it was a training exercise. Statisticians at the scorer's table began exchanging confused looks. They started checking old records, flipping through databases, pulling up decades of FIBA statistics. Because what they were seeing didn't make sense, Clark was doing something no debut player had ever done before. By the time the second half rolled around, the whispers had already begun spreading through media. Rows and team benches. A record was about to fall. Then another. And the biggest shock of all came when someone finally confirmed. The first piece of history. Caitlin Clark had already broken the record for most assists ever recorded in a team. USA senior national team debut, men or women. That record had survived generations of American basketball. Legends, Olympians, Hall of Famers, all gone. And Clark had done it. Off the bench. But that was only the beginning. Because as the statisticians kept digging through the history books, they realized something even more unbelievable was unfolding. Clark wasn't just breaking American records. She was rewriting international basketball history itself. And by the end of the night, the final numbers would reveal a truth that left even Team USA coaches stunned. Caitlin Clark hadn't just dominated her debut. She had shattered 5 separate FIBA world records in less than 20 minutes. On the court, and suddenly the entire conversation inside the arena shifted. Inside the arena shifted. This wasn't just a great performance. It was the birth of a completely different kind of superstar. By the time the third quarter began, the arena wasn't watching a normal international game anymore. It felt like witnessing the moment a storm finally breaks open after hours of pressure building in the sky. The scoreboard was already starting to tilt heavily toward Team USA. But the real chaos was happening inside Senegal's defensive strategy, because everything they had planned was falling apart. Every possession now began with the same desperate decision: blitz Caitlin Clark or let her breathe. Neither option worked. If they sent 2 defenders, Clark sliced them apart with another impossible pass. If they backed off, she calmly stepped into deep threes that dropped through the net like they were inevitable. Ryan Howard became the biggest beneficiary of the chaos. Every time Senegal committed to trapping Clark, the ball found Howard waiting on the perimeter. Three-pointer, another 3, then another. The Senegal bench began shouting defensive adjustments, trying to rotate faster, trying to close passing lanes. But Clark had already seen the next move before the defense even reacted. One possession captured the madness perfectly. Clark dribbled up the court as 2 defenders rushed her near the sideline. Instead of retreating, she stepped directly into the trap, pulling both defenders toward her like magnets. At the last possible second, she whipped a behind-the-back pass across the court. Howard caught. It swished another 3. And that's when the realization started spreading through the arena. Senegal wasn't defending a player anymore. They were trying to survive a system. Clark wasn't just scoring. She was orchestrating everything. Meanwhile, inside the Team USA bench, another storyline was quietly unfolding. Chelsea Grath, a veteran who had started the game at point guard, sat watching the offense explode under Clark's command. Gray was one of the most respected playmakers in the world, a champion with ice in her veins. But even she could see what everyone else was beginning to understand. The tempo had changed. Clark wasn't simply running the offense, she was accelerating it beyond anything the starting lineup had shown earlier. Coach Kara Lawson felt it too. The moment Clark took control in that second quarter lineup, Clark, Howard, Plum, Erie Offen, and Billings, the entire team seemed to unlock another gear. Lawson later admitted it publicly. That group took us to a different level. But the second major twist of the night didn't come from strategy or scoring. It came from the numbers. Somewhere in the media section, a statistician finally confirmed something that made reporters stare at their screens in disbelief. Clark's 12 assists weren't just a Team USA debut. They were the highest assist total ever recorded by any player making their senior national team debut in the entire history of FIBA basketball. Every country, every era. Player. Gone, then another record. Clark now held the all-time FIBA record for assists by a bench player in qualifying competition, men or women, then another. Her 8 first-half assists with 0 turnovers became the most efficient half of playmaking ever recorded. In a qualifying game, 5 records. 119 minutes on the court, and suddenly the game itself felt almost secondary because the bigger conversation had already begun spreading across social media. Clips of Clark's passes flooded Twitter and Instagram within minutes. Analysts began posting stat graphics showing the shattered records. Fans debated whether they had just witnessed the most efficient international debut in basketball history. Even inside the Team USA locker room, players were starting to process what had just happened. Paige Bueckers shook her head during one timeout, laughing in disbelief after another Clark assist led to a wide-open shot. Angel Reese battled in the paint, grabbing rebounds and finishing through contact. But even she couldn't ignore the pace Clark had unleashed. The game was turning into a runaway. And yet the biggest twist of the entire night hadn't even been fully understood yet, because when the final buzzer sounded and the official numbers were confirmed, people realized that Caitlin Clark hadn't just broken records, she had exposed something much bigger. Team USA looked like an entirely different team when she was running the floor, and that realization was about to create a new problem for Coach Kara Lawson. A problem that could completely change the starting lineup moving forward. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the score itself almost felt like an afterthought. 102-46. Point demolition. But the number people couldn't stop talking about wasn't the margin of victory, it was 5. 5 FIBA world records shattered in one night within minutes of the game ending. The internet exploded. Clips of Caitlin Clark's passes began flooding every corner of social media. Slow-motion breakdowns appeared on basketball accounts. Analysts rewound the same sequences again and again, trying to understand how one player could dismantle an international defense so completely. The headlines started rolling in immediately. Clark rewrites FIBA history. 5 records in one debut. The most dangerous playmaker in international basketball. The reaction inside the basketball world was far more complicated than simple celebration, because Clark's performance didn't just raise excitement, it raised questions inside Team USA circles. The biggest one was impossible to ignore. Why wasn't she starting? Coach Kara Lawson had opened the game with veteran Chelsea Gray at point guard, trusting experience to stabilize the offense early. On paper, it made sense. Gray was a champion, a floor general who had spent years running elite teams, but now the comparison was unavoidable. The offense with Gray had struggled against Senegal's press. The offense with Clark had turned that same pressure into a highlight. Real fans noticed immediately. Comment sections exploded with debates. Some demanded Clark be inserted into the starting lineup immediately. Others defended Gray's experience, warning that one blowout game against Senegal didn't automatically rewrite the team's hierarchy. Then, analysts began posting the numbers. Clark's +-+35 in 19 minutes, +35 in 19 minutes. 12 assists, 17 points, 4 of 5 from 3, 0 first-half turnovers. Against a blitz defense, the graphics spread across social media like wildfire. Even WNBA players began reacting. Some reposted highlights with fire emojis. Others simply wrote one word, different. But beneath the excitement, a more emotional undercurrent began surfacing, because this game wasn't just about Clark. It was about the future of women's basketball. Paige Bueckers had delivered a smooth debut of her own, showing the versatility that made her one of the most respected young guards in the sport. Angel Reese battled physically inside, grabbing rebounds and finishing through contact, while Senegal's defense tried desperately to slow the pace. But every conversation kept circling back to one thing: Clark had changed the tempo of the entire team, and that realization created tension that nobody in Team USA leadership could ignore, because when one player suddenly becomes the engine of an offense, the entire structure of the roster begins to shift. Locker rooms feel it. Veterans feel it. Coaches feel it. And after this performance, Coach Kara Lawson stepped to the podium knowing reporters were about to ask the question everyone was thinking. Was Caitlin Clark about to become the starting point guard for Team USA? Lawson didn't give a direct answer. Instead, she said something that immediately ignited even more speculation. We're still figuring out our lineups. That sentence hung in the air like a warning, because everyone watching understood what it meant. The rotation that started the game might not be the rotation that finishes the tournament. And if Clark continued playing at this level, Team USA might be forced to make a decision that changes the entire direction of the team. Long after the arena lights dimmed and the crowd finally filtered out into the night, the real shock of what had happened was still spreading through the basketball world, because when statisticians finished verifying the numbers, the truth became even more staggering than anyone initially realized. Caitlin Clark hadn't just had a great debut, she had produced one of the most statistically efficient international performances ever recorded. 19 minutes, 17 points, 12 assists, 4 of 5 from 3, perfect from the free throw line, and the number that kept making analysts shake their heads in disbelief: 0 first-half turnovers, while facing a full-court blitz defense designed specifically to force mistakes in basketball terms. That combination was almost unheard of. But the real twist came when advanced analytics started circulating online. Clark's true shooting percentage for the game was calculated at 118%. Her plus-minus was +35 in limited minutes, and every major scoring run during the game traced back to the same trigger. The moment Clark took control of the offense, suddenly the conversation around Team USA changed overnight, because this performance didn't just break records, it revealed something much bigger. When Clark ran the offense, the entire team became faster, more dangerous, and almost impossible to defend. The ball moved quicker, the spacing opened up. Teammates started getting the kind of shots every coach dreams of creating, and Coach Kara Lawson knew it. At the post-game podium, reporters asked about Clark's playmaking and the impact it had on the second quarter. Lawson didn't hesitate. She called Clark one of the most dynamic playmakers in the world. A rookie, not a prospect. One of the most dynamic playmakers in the world. Those words echoed across sports media within minutes, and suddenly the starting lineup debate wasn't speculation anymore. It was inevitable, because if the offense looked this explosive with Clark coming off the bench, what would happen if she controlled the game from the opening tip? That question is now hanging over the entire tournament. Inside the locker room, players are already adjusting to the new pace Clark brings to the floor. Opposing coaches are studying film, trying to design defenses that might slow her down before the next matchup begins. But the truth is becoming harder to ignore with every replay of those passes. Caitlin Clark didn't just return from injury. She returned better, faster, and more dangerous than before. And if this debut was only the beginning, Team USA might be witnessing the moment their offense evolves into something the rest of the world simply can't keep up with. Because when a player walks into her first senior national team game and breaks 5 world records in under 20 minutes, the rest of the tournament suddenly becomes a very different story, and the next opponent is about to find out exactly why. Now the entire basketball world is staring at the same question. What did we just witness? Was that simply a dominant performance against an overmatched opponent? Or was it the moment a completely new era of international basketball quietly began? Because what Caitlin Clark did in that debut wasn't normal. Players don't return after 239 days away, step into their first senior national team game, and immediately rewrite record books that have stood for decades. They don't shatter 5 FIBA world records in under 20 minutes while turning every defensive trap into a highlight assist, but Clark did, and now the pressure shifts to the rest of the tournament. Opposing teams are studying the film right now, searching for answers. Coaches are scrambling to design defenses that might slow down the pace she unleashed. Meanwhile, Team USA has a decision looming that could change everything: whether Caitlin Clark stays in a bench role or takes control of the starting lineup. Because if this was just the beginning, the rest of the world might not be ready for what's coming next. So now we want to hear from you. Did Caitlin Clark just deliver the greatest senior national team debut in basketball history? Or is something even bigger about to happen? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, subscribe, and stay locked in. Because this story is only getting started. This story is only getting started.